talking about how we made the Swan princess.
It was my first cosplay ever, if you can believe it. I've never done cosplay. You have, but I haven't. So with this cosplay, there was no one pattern we followed. We started with this one. I don't know if you can see it, McCall's 8177, because it just had the really good like long dress shapes. There was no middle seam cutting it up. Yeah, it had the princess seams all the way down the dress. And then for the sleeves, I used a Frankenstein of all these patterns. This is the Simplicity 5806.
So we ended up just using the top of the sleeve from this dress, and you know, so it fit. And then we used C. You went in and did a mock-up, a couple mock-ups to Frankenstein all those together.
And actually, when I did the mock-up with C from this pattern, it wasn't big enough. So I drafted out a version of C that was like twice as long. Like I probably used up the whole width of the fabric, just because if you look at the reference image, you know, there's so much bulk between each tight piece that I needed a lot of fabric to achieve that effect down the whole sleeve. We cut out the McCall's pattern. I added a bit extra length. Like I think I added about 6 extra inches on the end, because if you look at the pattern, it like cuts off her ankles. I want it to be on the floor, which ended up being way too much length, so I took most of that off. And then I added extra width as well, and this I just winged, much to Serena's dismay, because I probably should have measured it, but instead when I was cutting it out, I just kind of winged it out a little extra further, as you can see here, which is not how you're supposed to do it. Don't do it like me. I sewed all the straight long seams together with 1/2 inch without reading the pattern. I just assumed. Apparently the pattern had 3/4 inch seam allowance. So when we did our first fitting on me, it was huge. It was just like hanging off.
It was really
me.
bad. I'm like, I'm not sure. And so I just kind of pinned it on her and like, you know, took it in different parts, and that's when I realized we didn't sew in enough seam allowance. So like, I'm just gonna go in and sew, you know, the extra seam allowance and see where it's at, and it ended up fixing the problem.
For this cosplay, we chose to use a sparkly satin that had this, or was it brocade?
It was jacquard or brocade sort of thing.
Sparkly jacquard.
It shed sparkles all over the place.
And then for the blue, we used teal matte satin. We couldn't find the exact green color that she has in the movie because, I don't know, that dark mint color just does not exist, I swear. We fully lined the main body of the dress, excluding the sleeves, and we used just a white lining satin. So after we'd done all the mock-ups and kind of figured out what a good sleeve shape was, we put the whole thing together by cutting off the top of the white sleeve and just attaching the blue straight to the white. And then Serena sewed in a bunch of channels, which we ran elastic through to get that tight fit. Made long band pieces with Velcro to go around the elastic on the outside to achieve that look. We did try one version where you had the band as part of the whole sleeve and then ran elastic through it. When you saw that blue satin all bunched up with the elastic, I didn't like how it looked.
It looked messy, and it, you know, wasn't even like, you know, hers looked like that.
Right, and the pictures hers look so smooth and even and have all those wrinkles from the elastic. I didn't like it. So we ended up going with the bands with the Velcro to attach underneath. So then after we got the whole dress together and attached the sleeves and the fit was good, the only thing left was the waistband, and we just kind of winged this by cutting a bunch of pieces on the bias. I believe they were 6 inches, so when I folded them in half and then took the seam allowance off, they ended up being like 2.5 inches wide band when completed. And we did one long strip, which then we ended up doing like a Windsor knot tie in the front to put the brooch over.
How we took the strip of the blue or the teal and kind of made our own bias tape for the top here.
Yes.
She also had that detail. And she actually cut it straight, and I sewed it on straight, and then we just ruche it down?
We just put some gathering stitches in by hand and just tightened it to get that sort of dip in the front. So what seems like a pretty simple dress actually had quite a few elements with how long the sleeves took with the mock-up and doing this top bias tape and the fitting, and then having to figure out how we're going to do the waistband.
I think I found the most challenging part to be attaching that decorative ribbon bias tape, whatever we made, to the chest.
But remember how it presented a bunch of fitting problems when you sewed that on? It made my chest so flat.
I don't know what happened or why it flattened here so much, but
yeah,
I think actually I had to sew it with like the extra details and what we were doing. Ended up taking in a little bit too much and creating a little bit weird fit. I probably now would go back in and, you know, fix it. But
at the time we were making about 6 cosplays in 2 months, so we had to just make it work. And fortunately, it didn't flatten me out too much where it presented a major fit issue. We just went with it.
I think it looked good.
Yeah, it worked out.
It's like you were wearing a corset.
A little bit.
We used an invisible zipper for the closure in the back. I suggested a corset back, but you didn't seem too thrilled about that for that dress.
No, I like corset backs, but this dress, you look at the reference image, she don't even see a closure on her. So I didn't really want that really obvious corset back, even though I know it would have given a great fit. I wanted it to stay as true to the image and the animation as possible.
I could see that too with the long princess seam. Having that corset back closure might have been a little awkward.
A little bit.
Type of dress.
Works for other dresses, but not this one. So there are a couple accessories with this dress as well. There is a brooch that goes at the center of her belt where the piece hangs to the floor. And I had seen people do really sparkly ones for this, and I didn't really want to draw a bunch of attention down that far on my body. I didn't feel like that was going to be flattering. So on Amazon, I found this really simple Nordic Viking style brooch, and then it came in, it was just kind of a silver, a gunmetal silver. And so I painted it with, I think I painted it first with Rub and Buff, and it wasn't sparkly enough, so we painted it with spray paint. And then the other accessory we had was, of course, her locket. Now, people do sell the Swan Princess locket on Etsy with the proper swan on it and everything, and that would have been beautiful, but like I said, we were making 6 cosplays in 2 months. And you can imagine, I mean, we spent over $500 alone on just the fabric for those 6 cosplays. I couldn't afford to spend $30 to $40 on a necklace I would wear one time. So I ended up just buying like, I think it was less than $10, this gold locket off Amazon. I thought no one's gonna get close enough to see it. We did talk about making a tiny swan to put on there and spray painting it and attaching it, but there was just not time. I mean, I was staying up until 3 a.m. the night before we got our train to make all these accessories. I was like, it's gold, it's shiny, it's fine. I also hand painted shoes for this cosplay as well. I got some cheap character shoes, some like theater dancing character shoes secondhand, and then I painted them with white Angelus paint. And that ended up working really well, even though that's leather paint and they were faux, it still took just fine. And then I sealed it with Mod Podge. And for white shoes, they held up pretty good during the day.
And wig.
And wig, yes. The wig for this was one of my biggest regrets for this cosplay, is that I didn't fork up more cash to get a really nice princess wig. I bought a really nice one for some of our other cosplays, and I got a bit of a sticker shock, so when it came to this one, I just bought something cheap on Amazon, thought it'd be fine. I didn't take into account the fact that I have a huge noggin. My head is massive. So this cheap little Amazon wig cape, when I tried to put over my head and all my hair, it looked thin, it looked cheap. I don't think I even tried it on well enough as I should have to style it before we left. And then we were at the con, I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks like crap.
Well, I made you bring the other wig. You grabbed the other one. You're like, this is not it. I'm like, you might just bring both.
We had a spare.
Just in case.
Yeah, we had a spare blonde
wig. It was
wig.
one that I had ordered originally for Sailor Moon years ago, and it came from China, and it wasn't even styled like it said it was going to be. It was just a blonde curly wig. I'm like, well, I can't send it back. I have this wig, and you were going through. He's like, just bring that one too. Just in case. You never know.
I was so glad you told me to bring that one, because otherwise I would have been stuck with this. It looked like Barbie hair you find on an actual Barbie, and not in a good way. So
the stuff that you can't brush through.
No,
yucky.
It was gross. So last minute, day of the con, we're getting ready. I put on this other wig, and it's got short bangs, right? It's kind of side swept, like short bangs, and she's supposed to have this big voluminous swoop and these curls. So if I had to do this again, I probably would get a much nicer wig. And in fact, I love this cosplay enough, I probably will get another wig and wear it again. But we just worked with what we had, with the extra wig we had at the con, and I think it was okay. It was okay. And that was the process of making this Swan Princess cosplay. I think for my first cosplay, it went pretty well. And I think a lot of that attests to Serena's excellent sewing skills. If I had to make this by myself, it probably wouldn't have turned out so good, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. And we were fortunate enough to be awarded a Judge's Choice Award for this cosplay. So they liked it as well too. They had great things to say about the fit of it, which again, all credit goes to her. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think I'll definitely wear it again. So, new wig next time. All right, that's all from us today. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I am Kira.
And I'm Serena.
And we're Fantastical Costumery. Bye!
Oh my god! You want to do it like that, cheesy? Okay. Should we measure our heads?
Sure.
Who's got a bigger head?
Who's got a bigger noggin?
Okay.
So don't forget to look at the camera when you're talking to them, bitches.
Start here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, you got 23 inches, almost exactly.
I feel like I have a big head.
I think you do too. I don't know if I necessarily have like abnormally large noggin, but when it comes to those cheap wigs that are made for like tiny people heads, not my big Norwegian noggin, it's
23. I think your head's smaller than mine.
what? You were 23 too.
Well, just under 23.
Oh.
Yeah. I got a huge head.
You gotta go right here, don't go under your
Huge.
23? 22 and a half to 23. 22 and a half.
So like the same size head.
So we have the same size head.